This new Star Wars game is interesting me more and more. In a recent interview with IGN, game director Julian Garrity at Massive Ubisoft opened up a bit more about the planetary locations in the game. For starters, Tatooine is a location. I'm all for new locations in the fiction to be explored, but going back to the iconic desert planet will be pretty cool. Yes, it's been overdone in the past, but I think the important point is an attention to detail exploration and opening up an iconic location to more discovery than we're used to. I think IGN actually posted another article about how this was supposed to be about exploring some of the behind the scenes of the movies that we loved in the original trilogy. So I think old fans are gonna like it. I mean, look at Hogwarts Legacy, a game that takes place at one of the most well-known schools in the world. But you'll hear all about how it was nice to explore this place on your own as opposed to through the narrow lens of a movie director. Not to say directors don't have vision, you know what I mean. And it's not just the planet they're reintroducing. Apparently you'll be able to work with the crime boss and potentially heavy alien slug, Jabba the Hutt. Like most action-adventure RPG lights like this, you'll end up having prominent figures and quest givers that take up a lot of our small encounters and interactions, giving us more work to do. And from what devs are saying, you'll be able to do a lot of work for the iconic Mass. And you'll even be able to betray him if you're feeling a little bit extra Lando. The entire game sounds like it's very focused on pushing players to explore the more seedy side of Star Wars. Really, it does sound like a pretty similar take to what Star Wars 1313 wanted to do, introducing players to the more rough side of the universe, the bounty hunters, crime bosses, and corruption that makes the fiction so interesting. Another location that was discussed in the interview was Toshara, a new moon inspired by the Eastern African savanna, specifically Tanzania. The place is designed around the outlaw atmosphere of the game. It's described by the studio as a hive of villainy and scum. And we've even seen the location in some of the gameplay already here, showing off the extraterrestrial city, a small town, and a pirate outpost, along with some speeder bike travel in between, which has been confirmed to be a customizable vehicle that can freely traverse open spaces. All of these locations use what they call the 80 to 20% rule. You've got 80% Earth-like features that you're used to seeing, and 20% alien. It's fun to learn more about the angles that these space games are taking with planetary creation. One of the most interesting aspects of all of these space games that we have popping up is how they each choose to handle large-scale but still interesting content. Between Elite Dangerous, No Man's Sky, Star Citizen, Starfield, and this, there are many slightly different approaches. Star Wars Outlaws sounds like the most traditional take, which makes sense coming from Massive. But as more details come out, we are getting a better picture of how the game will actually function. We recently also found out that each landing area on each planet will be about the size of 2 regions from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and less heavily dependent on procedural generation. Speaking of generation, this has generated some backlash that has seen the company come out to clarify. It will not be a slog of a game to get through. It is absolutely not a 200 to 300 hour epic. But Ubisoft probably has to do a little bit more than just say that to prove it. But I don't think that's really as important as people are making out to be. See, this is a different genre than most open world games. Space games are meant to be big, empty, and expansive. That's part of the point of space. Multiple planets, moons, points of interest, and space stations will inevitably feel emptier, but without them, the illusion of space is kind of lost. Yes, you could create small areas on each planet to explore, but in my opinion, this is one of the greatest shortcomings of older space games that we're trying to kind of move past now. Creating large areas on planets to explore isn't inherently bad if the gameplay is built around a player's ability to understand and traverse those areas easily. Or skip them altogether if you have no interest. Seriously, don't force players to explore. I don't think anybody likes that. Different games take different approaches to this. No Man's Sky features an impossible amount of places to visit and makes it very easy to navigate those planets. Star Citizen, being more detailed, requires a higher investment of time for one planet. Planets which themselves are huge in order to create exploration, base building, and other opportunities in a game that's not as expansive as others. Elite Dangerous allows a similar approach, and Starfield seems poised to offer an experience between this and what Outlaws is doing. Interestingly though, while Starfield seems to be taking a more immersive approach to space travel, Outlaws is the game that seems to simulate some level of flying out of atmosphere. But we'll have to get more details around that as the game progresses. This is a new genre of game for many people, and for the industry as a whole to experience in the mainstream in this generation. I'm excited to see what approach finds the most success, as it may decide how many space games work in the near future. There are still plenty of questions to be answered though. How far can we travel? How many places on one of these planets and moons can we land at? How many planets or moons are there? And of course, how will the game play? This is a different take than most previous Star Wars games, and the bar for space games is rising every year. A fact I'm very grateful for. Considering this game won't launch until well into next year barring any delays, there's still a lot of time for us to learn more. And I'll keep you updated as more info comes out in that time, both here and on the main channel.